Are you gonna fix your face before we start, or are you gonna keep making that face?
It's up to you.
Okay. And 3, because you can't count us down, Mike, with our credit
Growing adults,
journey.
not growing up as kids. But I will say that I did have my own apartment before you did. So
Wait, hold on. Let's talk about that. You were paying for your own apartment?
paying for my own apartment and qualified for my own apartment. Me and my roommates in the lodge, campus lodge, had our own apartment. Correct.
Welcome back to the Whittakers. I'm Barbara Whittaker.
Huey Whittaker.
This episode, we're going to be talking about credit usage, credit utilization, leverage. So I'll kind of just start it off and talk about when we were younger and, growing up, kind of where we started. When, you're growing up and you're watching how, your parents or those in your household, your grandparents, your aunties, your uncles are using their credit. Those are all important things because that forms your understanding of credit. But when I was, in college looking to get my own place, credit was very important to me. I was already in real estate at that time. I understood the importance of credit and what it could get you. And when I moved into my apartment with my best friend, I made sure we were both, and she made sure she and I were moving in with somebody that really understood paying their bills on time. Thankfully, she was all about that and had good credit, and so did I, and that was very important. I met my husband over here, and he was not necessarily in the same place. And that was one of those important conversations we had before we got married. We talked about credit. So, you go ahead and talk about what you felt about credit during our college years and what you were,
I didn't feel anything about it. I wasn't focused on it. I just didn't understand where credit, the place that credit took in life until we started getting serious about life. So I definitely have a history of credit. It just wasn't good credit. And it was
definitely some challenges there.
It was unconscious movement within credit. When I think first ever looked at my credit score, I was telling Barbara, I don't know if people heard of the 504 boys, but I'm pretty sure it was around, I think it actually was 504 when I looked at it. I don't think I ever went sub 500, but I might have. But I had some things on my credit. It wasn't that much, but it just didn't have credit. And to have a few
that
negative
bill on there.
Sprint Nextel, yeah. To do more, but there wasn't that much. But I just didn't have credit. I didn't use credit. I didn't establish credit. And the things that I did have on there were negative. So I started from a tough place, and had to, build out of that and kind of dig myself out of the hole when we had a realization on what that meant for us moving forward in life.
College is really an important time when kids are going to college. I didn't have anybody speak to me about credit. We had a conversation with our first daughter that's off to college, and basically we told her, avoid the credit card tables. Yeah, it's a trap. And enough people don't talk about, you need to avoid those as much as possible. So we told our daughter, when you go to college, avoid the credit card tables. They're very tempting. Everybody's going to get approved. You'll start getting this credit. You don't have a job. You don't make enough money. You can't pay the bill back. And it's easier to spend when you're not using physical cash. So until you get disciplined. So that if we have any first tips to offer is to stay away as a college student, especially from credit cards that are on the college campus until you kind of seek advice about that. But let's talk about credit scores and what makes up a credit score and why credit is important. So I'm going to talk about leverage. Credit to me is king. A lot of people say cash is king, and cash is very important. And they can run neck and neck sometimes depending on the business you're in, the industry you're in, what you're trying to achieve. But credit does a whole lot more than cash can do at any point in time. And so when you're looking to grow your business or you're getting investors involved, you want to use other people's money, credit is very important. That tells people how to pay your bills back on time. So, I like to say, credit gives you leverage to help you build what cash wouldn't allow you to do by yourself at maybe a much faster pace.
Or it gives you a head start. The way you look at it, gives you a head start. Maybe you didn't make enough, or you don't make enough to get the thing that you either needed to advance, or for business, or for life. The credit can give you that. It gives you a head start. And I'd look at credit, the actual term. Another way to think about it is credibility. So just thinking about it as somebody has a credible movement in how they move. That's the bank. That's just basically how the bank looks at you. Typically, you can do a lot more with what you have. Interest rates are lower. So if you hear the rich get richer, poor get poorer, it's actually true, especially when you're talking about utilizing other people's money, because you're going to pay a lower interest rate. You're going to it's going to be paid off faster, and you're going to spend less paying it off, right? So if you do have, and it's not necessarily about the rich, it's about the people that have the knowledge. So if you know about it now, right now, it's on you to make sure that you take advantage of the knowledge.
Yeah, one of our main goals is to help other people build wealth. But one of the things we've learned, especially with being in the real estate industry, is most wealthy people have built wealth off of real estate. And when you're younger and you're growing and you're building, you may not have the capital to be able to buy a house cash. Most people don't, right? So that is really important in starting the wealth building journey, to be able to have good credit so that a bank feels comfortable for you to purchase a home that you can afford, that's within your means, so that you can start your wealth building journey. And that's why credit is it's one of the main reasons that credit is really important.
Yeah, and even in business. I mean, small businesses to get going, sometimes you might need a piece of equipment or a tool or something that's going to maybe have a little bit more of a cash outlay initially, and maybe you don't have it. And so credit will allow you to get that and get your business up and running in order to start the cash flow and your revenue stream that you expect to make later. Now you can do it sooner. Again, head start gives you an opportunity to get now, maybe what you don't have the resources to get, just through an extension of how well you've managed your credit history, i.e. debt, and your finances. Maybe a personal testament and story. I told you how bad my credit was, and once I got that realization and we started talking about real life and adulting, I had to do something about it. So the first thing I did was pull my credit reports. So I got all the credit reports from the 3 bureaus, and then I basically went through all of them and found the derogatory credit lines. It was successful. I paid stuff, pennies on the dollar. But it also was a learning experience to understand, because before that I never really knew. And I went into it with an expectation that I was going to get it fixed, which is also good because my mindset was right. But I did have to go and do the work, right? And you can hire a company, there's many different ways to do it, but I chose to do it myself. And again, it wasn't 20 different derogatory credit lines. It was maybe 5 or 6. And so I was able to do that. And I think the biggest thing I took from that I can share with anyone is it's not an overnight process. You do have to make the calls. You have to, I did request a letter every time, that they said they were going to take it off if I did pay it. I got the letter and I would send it. I had the letter, send that to the credit bureau. Another thing I learned is you have to use the term, and I learned this after the fact, but that you have to use a term that gets movement, is validating. So if you call in the credit bureaus and ask them first, which should be your first step, is to validate all these derogatory credit inquiries on your credit report. And so what'll happen is you wait 30 days, which I did this as well, and then they'll take off what can't be validated, and anything beyond 7 years has to come off your credit score, or I should say credit report. But it doesn't necessarily mean that your credit score is going to increase at that point or at any time in the near future, because you got to remember, as Barbara stated, you have to use your credit in order for your credit to show as a positive kind of thing.
Yeah, and I want to interject with a disclaimer. Every credit situation is different. There are a lot of variables in making sure you can get your credit to a high standing point. So first thing is understanding that you can get your score there too. The second thing is, like I said, everybody's credit journey is different. You're going to have to take different steps. There are things you should and you shouldn't touch. There are things you should and you shouldn't do to try to get you to a better place sooner rather than later. So make sure you investigate your situation. Like Huey said, getting your credit report really is the first step, and knowing what's being reported on your credit. We can't out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. You have to have that as the first step to really know, where you're starting and what your situation is, and seek help. So if you have derogatory credit on your credit report after 7 years of it being untouched, that means you hadn't made a payment, you hadn't reactivated that timeline, it's been sitting dormant for 7 years, derogatory, it technically has to come off of your credit report. So creditors, Huey mentioned earlier that people that own the debt, it may not be your original creditor that currently owns the debt at the time that they're reporting, are very schemish. Like they know how to keep movement to keep that debt active. So you have to be very careful and making sure you don't extend that timeline any longer than it needs to be extended.
Yeah, and one of the tactics and strategies, kind of to Barbara's point, and that's why I was asking you to maybe mention, because I know this happened, specifically to you, where they get you to agree to like a payment arrangement just prior to that 7 years, and then it restarts.
Correct.
That time.
Yeah, and it's not good for your credit. It's sometimes better to wait out a time period for that to be done and over with, for you to have your fresh start.
Another initial step was to get some sort of credit established, and for me was a secured credit card. And that secured credit card, I actually did 2 of them. And what that did is give me 2 trade lines. A secured credit card was basically me paying, and this is what I did, 2 $500 deposits at a secured credit card company. And then they extended 2 $500 credit cards. And so basically they had the money, there was no risk for them, right? And so, but that they reported to all 3 bureaus. And so now I can establish good credit, right? I can buy whatever and pay it off and show that I can, be a responsible user of credit. And so the secured credit card was really the right one, because I could actually have access to like that $500 or $1,000 deposit that I'm trying to help establish my credit in. I still have one of them to this day, and we'll talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we'll kind of wrap up in a little bit. One of the things I want to make sure we make clear is that there are, similar to what Huey mentioned, there are a lot of opportunities out there. There's companies where you pay rent to, your utility companies that you can use. So if you are a person that doesn't have access to or don't have the ability to get a credit card, you can start building good credit through these programs where you report to the credit bureau that you pay your rent on time or you pay your utility bills on time. Those are all strategies that can be used in building your credit. If you have a credit card, one of the things that boosts your credit score, some people think, I'm going to pay that credit card off and not have a balance at all. It actually does better for your credit score if you utilize that credit card and pay it on a regular basis. And you want to keep your credit line under 30% at a minimum, at 30% under that credit line. So for example, if you have a $1,000 credit card, you don't want to spend more than $300 on that credit card. And if you are paying it off monthly, that's great. If you pay more than the minimum payment, that's important. Important point for us to make, that you never just want to pay the minimum payment. So there's a lot of key strategies that you need to use or can use to really boost your credit score in a short period of time if you have a strategy. But let's start by talking about the steps and making sure it's clear. The very first step is going to be, you need to pull your credit report from all 3 credit bureaus. So there's a website, it's called annualcreditreport.com. You go on there, you get access to all 3 of the credit bureau's credit reports. You print those out or you look at them on your computer and you see what's being reported to every single credit bureau. What one credit bureau may have may differ because certain creditors don't report to all 3. They may report to 1, they may report to 2. So that's why it's important to pull all 3. That way.
As you're building credit, just do the base, just do the foundational pieces, get up and running. And as you improve your score, if you want to add pieces on, take those. And then also, as you're applying for new credit, if you do get denied, you also can now request, and you should get a document that states that now you have access to getting a copy of your report because you were declined, so you know the reasons why.
Yes. Step number 2, get your credit score from each bureau. You may have to pay a small amount with the credit bureaus in order to obtain that, but what that tells you is kind of where you lie in the scale of things, to see where, if you're on the lower end, if you have good credit, very good credit, where you need to move. It's very important to know your score because that's how credit is given based on that score, and you'll have some insight to that if you know what that credit score is. The third thing is, if you have derogatory credit, you want to start the process of understanding whether you should address that derogatory credit by inquiring, like Huey said, trying to negotiate, a lower payoff amount, or if it's something that you maybe need to leave alone and not touch until it falls off of your credit. And then the fourth,
and I would say anything over 5 years, 5.5 years, you may want to consider it very, very seriously to not really engage with that file at all. And again, use terminology validating those credit inquiries is what the terminology is what you want to use.
Yes. And then the fourth thing, after you've done and taken all of those steps, is coming up with the strategy on how you can increase your credit score. Is that you need more, revolving credit? Do you need, some real estate credit? Do you need, some other type of secured lines in order to boost your score? And you can find that out through various tools and resources online on what steps you could take to start boosting your score in a short period of time.
And just to restate, 30% is the threshold, right? Once you go over that, you've limited the amount of credit improvement that you can have with utilizing your credit. Once you stay under that, right, that's how you can maximize your credit score the most is again, between, and I'd say 1, I guess, and 30% of credit utilization. And I also want to state, like, we're not credit experts. Like, we're not credit repair people. We don't have a business. We don't have a dog in the fight at all. What we are, though, are people that went from like a 504 to be exact to, and this is this is just facts, to, above 800, and didn't, we never, called a company, had a company work on our stuff. All we really did was just understand these principles and implement them. And like we talked about in the beginning with the knowledge, once you have that, it's on you. I think it's also on us, though, to seek it out. But it's not our fault if we don't know. It's our fault if we know and don't do anything.
So, I think that those are the 4 pointers. Obviously, strategy is always involved. You kind of get to that once you get your foundational, get your credit score, get your credit report, get your credit score, handle any derogatory issues, and then build a strategy from there. Are you paying down debt? Or is there another type of debt you need to have in order to maximize your score? And then once you kind of go through those steps, you can then start to leverage your credit within your means, right? You don't want to over leverage yourself or have too much credit or max out your credit, right? You use that as a tool to continue to build, whether it's your business, your real estate, whether you're investing in something, whatever that is, that really just speaks to your credibility.
And I will also add that, again, we're not credit repair people, but there are some really good ones out there. And so we also, if you are in that business, we would love to hear from you. We would love for you to kind of, participate in helping people as they really encounter their credit repairing journeys. And if we had, credible, relationships with people in that space at the time, I don't know if we could have afforded them, but we would have definitely, possibly engaged with what their services could have provided with us, because we realize that we don't, do everything at the highest level, but we're willing to learn. And I think with that one, we were just willing and engaged and blessed enough to have a kind of that drive to finish it and get to a place where we finally ended up getting.
So this brings us to the end of our episode. We'd love to hear any comments or challenges that you've faced in your credit journey. If you have any questions about our credit journey, we're more than happy to share. And we just ask that you continue to follow our channel, to like, subscribe, and to comment. Thank you for joining us. Now go say bye now.
Bye. Have a great day.